and Gail this weekend are in Venice watching their dear, dear lifelong friends, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez, get married, because that's what you do when you are Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez. You invite only your close,
Venice, a city of romance, power, and secrets. On this night, its marble halls glowed under golden chandeliers worth more than most people's homes. Guests in glittering gowns and hand-tailored tuxedos raised crystal glasses, toasting what the world believed was a fairy tale, the wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez. But while the orchestra played and paparazzi swarmed outside in gondolas, one man slipped through the crowd unnoticed. No champagne in hand, no conversation, just a camera. He lifted it once, click. A single photograph. At first glance, it seemed harmless. Lauren Sánchez smiling, leaning close to the wife of a powerful tech rival. Just another moment in a night of endless glamour. Except it wasn't. That photograph would become the spark that lit the fuse on a $5 billion war. Because in that quiet whisper, caught mid-smile, Lauren spoke 3 words. 3 words so small, yet so catastrophic, they triggered the most ruthless clause in legal history, a hidden weapon buried in a prenup designed not to protect love, but to destroy it. What looked like the happiest day of their lives was no celebration. It was the opening move in the most brutal billionaire divorce the world has ever seen. And this is where the fairy tale ends and the real story begins. Venice glittered like a movie set. Gondolas drifting across the canals, chandeliers reflecting golden light on the water, roses lining every corner. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a coronation. Jeff Bezos, the richest man alive, stood hand in hand with Lauren Sánchez as Hollywood royalty, tech billionaires, and politicians watched. Smiles everywhere. Champagne overflowing. The kind of night where people whispered, "This is what happily ever after looks like." But here's the catch: every glance, every laugh, every touch was being tracked. Secret cameras, hidden microphones, and watchful eyes turned what looked like a royal celebration into a battlefield of surveillance. This wasn't just love. This was strategy. And the reason for all this spying? A single contract so cold, so ruthless, that business schools would later dissect it like a weapon of war. They say a contract is only words on paper until those words can take everything. Reports later described the prenup as an 847-page fortress, drafted by 5 separate law firms, each clause cross-checked, cross-referenced, and polished until there was nowhere left to hide. Legal observers would call it precise. Others would call it brutal. Whatever name you choose, it read less like a marriage agreement and more like a tactical manual. Buried in that vast maze of legal language were 7 clauses people began to whisper about in hushed tones, the so-called death clauses. Each line wasn't written to protect a marriage. It was written to neutralize a person. First came the headline everyone feared, the $5 billion boomerang. Allegedly, this single trigger could flip millions into losses with a single stray move, an unauthorized post, an offhand interview, a handshake with the wrong company. The message was chillingly simple. One small misstep and the financial penalties would come crashing down like a boomerang you could never catch. Next, the silence protocol. Reports claim it forbade memoirs, op-eds, collaborations, or any public retelling of the marriage without express written permission. Speak, and you didn't just lose money, you forfeited your right to tell your own story. The clause read like a muzzle disguised as legal protection. Then the image trap, so broad, so sweeping, that every photo, every endorsement, every public appearance could be recharacterized as exploitation. A lipstick deal, a charity gala, a single smile on Instagram. All of it could be argued as taking advantage of the marriage for gain. The circle of isolation followed. According to accounts circulated afterward, it forbade professional or personal ties with anyone deemed a competitor. Competitor was defined so loosely that old friends, potential business partners, or future allies could all be swept into the blacklist. It was a ring of slow suffocation, designed to clip wings before they could lift. Then came the political mouth clause, a near-total bar on fundraising, lobbying, or public political influence tied to the relationship. For someone who might want to speak out or support causes, it was a legal leash, move in politics, and watch doors close. The nullity of inheritance read like an instruction manual for control. Assets that seemed shared were structured in a way that, reports suggested, required board approval for any transfer, and the board, it appeared, answered to the other party. In short, nothing could pass hands without permission. Finally, the most feared piece, the cascading clause. It tied the others together like a row of dominoes. One violation, however minor, and the rest would tumble. A single breath out of place could trigger a chain reaction that erased protections, money, access, even legal standing. Put them together, and the prenup stopped being a shield. It became a weapon, calibrated, redundant, and irreversible. Legal scholars would later analyze the drafting with a mixture of awe and revulsion, technically brilliant, ethically fraught. Some called it a wake-up call for anyone who believed love and law were separate. And Bezos wasn't just waiting for her to slip, he was setting traps. Luxury, power, opportunity, everything Lauren Sánchez touched seemed golden. Or so it appeared. Reports suggest that almost every glittering opportunity was carefully engineered to ensnare her. A seemingly prestigious brand deal for a high-end skincare line? Not what it seemed. The company, sources say, was a shell, set up not to reward her, but to trigger clauses in her prenup. One signature, one handshake, and legal alarms silently clicked into place. Then came the conferences. Women's empowerment, business summits, charity panels, all perfectly aligned with her passions. Yet, behind the scenes, lawyers and strategists had flagged these events as potential violations of political and isolation clauses. What looked like growth, influence, and networking was actually evidence gathering in disguise. Even the media was weaponized. Journalists, many oblivious to the larger game, asked innocent questions about business plans, charitable work, and public positions. Every answer was dissected, every nuance archived, building a private dossier that would later form a mountain of legal leverage. The surveillance didn't end there. Housekeepers, trainers, stylists, and personal assistants, all legally bound by strict non-disclosure agreements, became unwitting eyes and ears. Every conversation, every minor gesture, every social connection was meticulously reported. Lauren wasn't just under observation, she was feeding the very arsenal that could one day dismantle her world. It was a gilded cage. Every glittering opportunity, every flattering invitation, every moment of seeming freedom, a trap in disguise. But the deadliest trap was waiting in Monaco. Monaco. Glittering yachts, red carpet entrances, and chandeliers reflecting on the Mediterranean like liquid gold. The charity gala was meant to celebrate ocean conservation, but for Lauren Sánchez, it became a turning point she could never have predicted. Amid the sea of A-listers and philanthropic applause, she leaned in to speak with Elena Morrison, the wife of one of Jeff Bezos' fiercest rivals. To any outsider, it looked like polite conversation between two influential women, a moment of networking and laughter. But hidden in plain sight, it was something far more dangerous. Lip readers later examined the footage. 3 words stood out: David's next acquisition. Innocuous to the untrained eye, but to Bezos' legal team, this accidental exchange was a red flag. Simply receiving information, even unknowingly, constituted a breach of the prenup's ironclad confidentiality clauses. And there it was, the photograph. A single snapshot capturing Lauren's smile, her acknowledgement, her curiosity, all frozen in time. What seemed like a candid moment of elegance had transformed into a smoking gun, an irreversible piece of evidence in a legal battle that had been quietly engineered for months. This wasn't socializing. It wasn't gossip. It was the final trigger, the domino that would set the most meticulous war machine in motion. And within 72 hours, the war machine was unleashed. By sunrise, Lauren Sánchez's world had shifted overnight. Her credit cards, once symbols of effortless access, were frozen. Business accounts, built over years, suddenly became off-limits. Brand partners who had lined up for collaborations quietly vanished, their contracts quietly severed. Luxury she thought was hers, art collections, jewelry, even gifts from Bezos, were legally his all along. Every possession became a reminder of control, not love. But the destruction went beyond money. Her reputation, painstakingly cultivated, unraveled with ruthless precision. Invitations that had once been guaranteed now disappeared. Friends and allies, terrified of association, suddenly became ghosts. Even her longtime hairstylist and personal assistants quietly stopped scheduling appointments, leaving her isolated in a world that had once celebrated her. Every move she made, every plan she had, was countered with silent but absolute power. Financial ruin was only part of the strategy. Social annihilation was the real weapon, executed with surgical precision. And the silence, the calculated public silence, was Bezos's sharpest weapon. Jeff Bezos never spoke publicly. No statements, no accusations, just silence. Yet that silence became a weapon more powerful than any headline. In a world where perception is everything, not being defended or mentioned was enough to make Lauren Sánchez appear guilty, unworthy, and untouchable. Memoir deals she had hoped would tell her story suddenly collapsed. TV projects, interviews, and opportunities evaporated as legal teams quietly warned publishers and producers of potential violations. Every potential ally hesitated, wary of entangling themselves in a battle with one of the most powerful men on the planet. Slowly, methodically, the world she had known, the glittering circles of billionaires, celebrities, and high society closed in, shutting her out entirely. Wealth, influence, friendship, and trust all vanished, leaving her isolated. In those circles, she was no longer just excluded. She was rendered nearly worthless. Every move she made to resist only tightened the invisible noose around her life. And all the while, Bezos watched calm, precise, untouchable. But Bezos wasn't done yet. 6 months after the divorce, an unmarked envelope appeared at Lauren Sánchez's door. No return address. No explanation. Just a quiet harbinger of what had been happening all along. Inside, she found the photograph, the same one from Venice, the moment everyone thought was innocent, captured forever in high-quality print and framed with exquisite silver. On the back, in handwriting unmistakably his, 3 words, 2 words too late. In that instant, the full weight of reality hit her. Every smile, every gesture, every carefully orchestrated moment of her wedding and early marriage, all had been quietly recorded, analyzed, and weaponized. Every opportunity she thought she had grasped was a thread in a trap, each dream turned into evidence against her. The fairy tale she believed in had never existed. It was never romance. It was strategy, meticulously plotted, executed with the precision of a master tactician. And that's when people began to realize this wasn't just a divorce. It was a masterclass in billionaire warfare. Legal scholars now study the infamous $5 billion boomerang not just as a contract, but as a blueprint, a weaponized model for the ultra-rich, showing how prenups can be transformed into instruments of absolute control. But insiders whisper that this story isn't over. Somewhere in the shadows, another figure is preparing to enter the maze, someone who could change everything Lauren thought she knew about power, love, and revenge. The stage is set. The pieces are in motion. And the question lingers, did Bezos truly win, or does Lauren still hold one last card? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe, because the next part will change everything.